Allah is my heart's speech. Your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest. Permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's time for a new episode of Ask Huda. I'm your host, Fuad Muhammad. Today we're joined on the program by our dear and respected Islamic scholar, Dr. Mohamed Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Doctor, and welcome to Ask Huda.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Fuad. May Allah bless you and your family.
Ameen. Okay, today we will not be accepting any telephone call, and this is because we are dealing with some of the questions we've received from the Kalima seminar that was held in Dubai, and it is the seminar in which Dr. Mohamed Salah was present, and he delivered some courses in Aqidah, and these are some of the questions we've received from that course. So if you were part of that course, then look forward for questions to be asked on the program. As well as if you have any questions for Ask Huda, you can always write to us at ask, that's ask, @huda.tv. Okay, Doctor, we begin with the question, can we supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to hang out? And they put it in inverted commas, example, play football, have dinner with the Prophet and messengers, peace be upon them, and the companions and the pious predecessors. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa, la siyama al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. Well, praise be to Allah alone. We praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is the truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about what He has prepared for the dwellers of heaven, لَهُمْ مَا يَشَاءُونَ فِيهَا وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيدٌ. For them is whatever they will in it, and we even have more. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described what Ahlul Jannah, or the inhabitants of heaven, will get as saying, فيها ما لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر. You cannot really imagine what Allah has prepared for Ahlul Jannah. No eye have ever seen, no ears have ever heard of, and it has what have never crossed anybody's mind. Great. So without going into details, whether I will get to play football or soccer or tennis table or swimming or whatever, the word لَهُمْ مَا يَشَاءُونَ فِيهَا, every good thing that they desire, they will get. We were told in some of the hadith, a man may see a bird flying in heaven, and he desires the bird to be broiled or boiled or barbecued, so it would fall on a tray, whichever way he desired. He will eat it, he will finish it, until only the bones are left out. Then after he eats it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will rebuild the body of the bird, and it will take off and will fly back. We're talking about heaven. So I do not think it's a good idea for every person to start asking, well, will I get to play video games in heaven? Yes. Will I get to eat this particular food? Yes. Will I get to do this and this and this and that? As long as it is a good thing, definitely yes. Because Al-Jannah, once a person makes it to heaven, there is no no. Yes and no, do's and do not do's. Basically, we're in this life as means of tests and trials. And whoever will pass the test and succeed will enter heaven, where there is only a reward without takalif, without commandments. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah An-Nisa, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Yes, Ahlul Jannah, when they enter heaven, they will enjoy whatever Allah has prepared for them. But Al-Jannah is levels and degrees and ranks. So there are some who will get to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and enjoy looking at His face. And some will hang around with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the truthful, with the martyrs, with the righteous ones. And how can one achieve that? The condition was mentioned in the beginning of the verse of Surah An-Nisa. وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ. By obeying Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this life and loving them and desiring to be in the company of the Prophet ﷺ and working hard for it, one will get, insha'Allah, by the leave of Allah, what they were longing for.
Okay, the next question, is it permissible to ask others who are alive to pray for us, and can be doing so considered a weakness of faith?
No, not at all. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was reported once as asking from Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, to include him in his supplication, because he was going to perform Hajj and Umrah, and he's going to sacred places during sacred times. So it is recommended and it is liked to ask others to pray for you, and you pray for others.
Mm-hmm.
As it is mentioned in the hadith, that one of the best invocations or dua is to make dua for your brother in his absence or in the unseen. Also among the virtues of praying for others, that if somebody is praying for another in his absence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appoints an angel to say Ameen, to make ta'meen for his dua, and furthermore to say, and oh Allah, give him similar to what he is asking for his brother or for his sister. So this is one of the means which would strengthen the ties of the brotherhood in the Muslim Ummah. And asking righteous people to pray for you is prescribed in the Sunnah. Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked him to pray for his mother, and it was a single dua, and his mother had become a Muslim and accepted Islam. Many incidents like that, so there is no problem of asking others to pray for you, as long as those others, you assume that they're righteous or pious people and they're alive. The restriction will be if you go to a dead person, or the shahid, or the maqam, or the pir, or the grave of a dead person, and try to speak to him in the grave while he is desperately in need himself, and ask him to bless you, or to ask Allah to help you, or now the person will indulge into an activity of shirk, wal-'iyadu billah.
Okay, what is the ruling on a proper Islamic grooming or attire for men and women? How can you describe that if a person is dressed, that he is Islamically dressed? Can you give some description?
The description as Islam stated is to cover the awrah, to cover the prescribed awrah. So if you go to Malaysia and you find the ladies wearing their custom uniform with the proper hijab, loose clothes, not see-through, not tied, revealing the details of the body, wearing proper hijab, this is an Islamic dress. When you see men wearing clean and nice clothes, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Wear your adornment before going to every masjid. So similarly, if you're wearing a thobe, for instance, a long dress for men, or wearing a suit and nice clean pants, not tied, those tied jeans or husky, lowering them in order to show a part of the awrah, or Western fashions, all of that is restricted in Islam, especially imitating non-Muslims. But wearing nice clean clothes, not revealing the awrah, not showing the awrah in a way or another, is an Islamic dress. I cannot say you have to wear a shalwar qamis in order to be a Muslim, or that is stated somewhere. So some areas they wear a rida and an izar, similar to what we wear in Hajj. They wrap a sheet around their waist, similar to a skirt, covering the awrah, and they have a rida on top of the shoulders. That is permissible. That is covering the awrah, as long as it's also not a thiyabu shuhra, where if you're living in, for instance, in Pakistan, and where people wear shalwar qamis, beautiful, as long as it is clean and it is proper, no problem whatsoever. This is an Islamic dress as well. I mean, it fits the criterion of an Islamic outfit for men. But what if you wear something that's not familiar there, in order to be recognized and diagnosed amongst people as unique and special? In this condition, we say that is restricted. Why? Because this kind of outfit is in order to be recognized, and that is prohibited in Islam, which is known as thiyabu shuhra. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay. Is it the practice of going out 4 or 40 days or however many days? Is it considered innovation, even if you're learning Islamic values? And are the Tablighi Jamaat a deviant sect? They have many appealing characteristics, but some of their practices are quite weird.
Okay. I guess the answer of this question is in detail, and it is posted on our website, because I have answered this question repeatedly. And we cannot say that they are deviated from the truth or one of the sects which deviated from Islam, not at all. As I always said, I praise them for their sincerity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all sincerity. And I requested from them to seek knowledge and to widen the area of search, not to limit themselves to 1 or 2 resources, rather to study in Al-Bukhari or Muslim and in the sound tafsir and the sound sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the deen is not reduced only in 1 or 2 books. In addition to that, going out to give da'wah for the sake of Allah is the work of Al-Anbiya, no doubt. The problem is, I'm not allowed to determine certain number of days every month, or certain number of months every year, or certain years per lifetime, and say this is a sunnah, because I have to back this up with a proof of the actions of the Prophet ﷺ or the actions of his companions, where da'wah is accessible once there is a way to give da'wah in the street, at home, at school, at work, in the plane, traveling here or there, and even going out with the intention of giving da'wah to one neighborhood or locality where you know that they are full of shortcomings, or they do not have a proper leadership, or they are deviated from the mainstream teachings of the deen. So we go and we spend some time with them in order to teach them. It's a praiseworthy act. But here I disagree with saying that you have to go out for certain number of days, because when I stick to numbers or quantities or measures, that has to have a reference. So once again, we all meet with regards to the fact that نحن أمة الدعوة. We have to give da'wah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised us in the Quran for the very quality which is that يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر. We cannot deny the great work they do when they go to Spain, when they go to Mexico, when they go to certain remote areas where a lot of people ignore and neglect those people. But once again, I guess they need to widen their resources and to cover the entire encyclopedia of the deen with regards to the Quran and its tafsir, with regards to Aqidah, with regards to the Sunnah and its principles. And there is another very important advice. It's a brotherly and friendly advice, which is that فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه لغيره. فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه لغيره. If you do not have, you cannot give. So it is not proper for a person whom I just recruited to the masjid and I started teaching him how to pray or how to make wudu, and I say, are you ready for khuruj? And I take him with me in order to give da'wah to others. There is a great deal of negatives and drawbacks out of that. We have seen people thinking just by wearing a special outfit or growing a beard or reading a particular book or giving a bayan that they become qualified. Once again, I'm not generalizing. I do not generalize. Many of them used to visit with me in the States, and if they know that I was in any center while they were giving their bayan, they would ask me to give a ta'aleem, and I would teach as much as I can. And I would say exactly what I'm saying right now, that we need to work out to improve ourselves and to line up with the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if any of us just learn something today, if somebody joined a medical school and he studied a few classes in anatomy or surgery, he cannot operate on a patient. Not unless if he's qualified and he spends some years in residency after graduation, etc. So we have to differentiate between giving da'wah and giving ta'aleem and giving fatwa. These different categories are very, very important, and we should not confuse the issues.
Okay, we have the next question here. How do we explain the concept that Allah exists above the heavens and yet He is closer to us than our jugular vein to a child?
Okay. These two facts have been stated in the Quran. Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arshi istawa. Ar-Rahman, the most beneficent, rose above the throne. Okay. Then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated that He is the one who created the heavens and earth in 6 days, then istawa ala al-arsh. And once again, He rose above the throne. The word istawa in Arabic is known, which is to settle down. To us, we did not know, we have not seen how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala istawa ala al-arsh. But the concept of the term itself is known to us. So we're not required to search or dig behind the actual meaning of it. We take it as is. This is number one.
Okay.
So He is above His throne, above the heavens.
Yes.
Okay. Second, He also stated in the Quran, وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبِلِ الْوَرِيدِ, and we are closer to Him than His own jugular vein. These two facts to us are unseen.
Yes.
Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised the believers in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah by saying, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ then وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. So, fulfilling the acts of worship has come second to the very first principle and fact, which is belief. Belief in what? In Allah, in His oneness, etc., in His angels, and all of that to us is unseen. So when He informs us about Himself, we've got to believe in that. This is one part that is inseparable from the concept of faith. How come that He is above heavens, and in the last 1/3 of each night He descends to our worldly heaven? Then in another ayah He said, وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبِلِ الْوَرِيدِ, and He is closer to each and every one of us than his or her jugular vein. And in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. قَرِيب, I am very near. I am very near. How can we compromise or combine all of these facts together? Where is Allah? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam answered this question, or at least approved the answer of the girl whom he asked and said, where is Allah? She said, above the heavens. He said to her master, free her, she is a believer. Because she is recognized where is Allah, and also who is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Second, when he says, ما يكون من نجوى ثلاثة إلا هو رابعه ولا خمسة إلا هو سادسه ولا أدنى من ذلك ولا أكثر إلا هو معهم أينما كانوا. أينما كانوا. There is no secret council of two, but he is their third, or of four, but he is their fifth, etc. Neither more nor less, but Allah is with them wheresoever they are. Does not necessarily mean that He's sitting with them physically, because no place can contain Him nor a part of Him. Okay? So what does it mean? It means with His infinite knowledge, He knows what they're talking about, whether it's two or three or more or less. Even one by himself is just contemplating an idea or thinking without talking. He knows what's hidden in his heart. وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورِ. So this is the fact that His infinite knowledge, which is one of His traits and beautiful attributes, make Him subhanahu wa ta'ala able to know whatever goes on everywhere and anywhere. And that is the meaning of, if you ever seek His help, He's close to you. Right?
Yes.
Does not necessarily mean physically He is sitting with you. But where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He is above His throne. What about at night, in the 1/3 of the night, when He come and He says, if there is any da'i, so I can answer his dua, any seeker of refuge, so I can give him refuge, etc. Yes, He descends physically, because the explicit meaning of the hadith says He descends, so He descends. How? We don't know. Are we allowed to investigate? No, we're not. Why? Because it's as simple as that. Till now, we cannot comprehend the metabolism that's going on within our bodies. The process of the growth of the seed that we sow under the ground and it grows up. We just watch and observe and write our observations. So how come that there is one seed that grows up and produces a tree with fruits, and another one dies, and one can produce two, etc.? this creation mechanism, we can only observe and write down our observations, but only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how all of that happens. So if it is hard for us to imagine how the brain functions, how the creation is just functioning all at once in a beautiful symphony, so how is it possible for us to think about Allah's being and how He's managing all of that? We have limits. We should stop at our limits, and we should not try to exceed the boundaries. What happens when we have a child who keeps asking that, how does this TV set works? So you try to explain to him about the short and long waves and all of that, and explain to him about the light and capturing the light. So I can't understand. What do you say? Well, when you grow up, you will understand. You have to take things gradually. For us as human beings, even though we claim that we went to other planets and all of that, we still cannot find reasons for many things, for tons of things that happen within ourselves.
So
there are diseases which scientists and physicians have been working on it for decades in order to find a cure or a medication that slows down either the virus or the microbe or whatever, and they fail. Why? To indicate that وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ. The whole world is working on a single virus, and they cannot comprehend its being and how to overcome this virus. So these are just some of the examples in order to make us understand that Allah is indeed the greatest, and He is beyond imagination. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to believe in whatever He informed us about, since it's totally unseen to us. الرحمن على العرش استوى, then استوى على العرش. That He is closer to us than the jugular vein, then He is. How? This is none of our business. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, mashallah. Okay, is forgetfulness from shaitan? From
Not
Satan?
necessarily. Al-Insan is the name of mankind in general. You and me and every human being is insan. And its root word is taken from nisyan, which is forgetfulness. It is true that in Surah Al-Kahf, that Moses' servant, who became later on his successor, Yusha ibn Nun, said, وَمَا أَنسَانِيهُ إِلَّا الشَّيْطَانُ أَنْ أَذْكُرَهُ. What made him forget about the fish was a shaitan. In this incident, it is true. And in many incidents, we forget in our prayer. من الشيطان. But sometimes forgetfulness is a mean of mercy. We have to forget. We have to forget our sad moments, our sorrow experiences, the death of our beloved ones. If we don't forget, if one day you hurt my feeling and I never forget that for you, I will never forgive you. So in order to forgive, you have to forget. In addition to, similar to your digital camera, the chip or the memory card on your phone or digital camera or whatever, or the hard drive on your laptop, if it is full with data, 200, 500 gig, and it's already full, then you cannot add nothing extra. What do you need to do? Delete some. So what shall we delete? Things which are of no use, things which may hurt our feeling. So it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes that we forget. So I cannot generalize and say forgetfulness is always from a shaitan. It could be a mean of mercy, as I explained the difference.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Doctor, for clarifying that. We'll take a short break here on Ask Huda, and we'll be back right after this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Amazing stories. In this program, we get to know about people of the past whose stories were mentioned in the Islamic tradition and related by the Prophet, peace be upon him.
That verily us, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we tell you about the best of the stories. We tell you about the best of the stories. When we narrate a story, when we read a story, when we try to benefit from a story, what we are trying to do in reality is to go back through the steps, through the different parts and sections of this story until the story is actually completed, and that we can take the actual benefit directly from the story.
Sheikh Lutfi will narrate these stories in his program Amazing Stories.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered one of the lands to come closer, the destination. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered one whole city to come closer, to move closer to this dead person.
Amazing Stories, soon in Ramadan on Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's good to have you back. You're watching Ask Huda. And just as we said at the very beginning of the episode, we're not accepting any telephone calls on the episode, and this is because we're receiving the questions from Kalima Seminar, which was held in Dubai, in which Dr. Mohamed Salah delivered some courses in Aqidah. These are some of the questions of that seminar. Dr. Mohamed, next question we have here: do jinn die, and is it possible for us to interact physically with them?
Yes, jinn do die. They eat, they drink, they marry. They have almost a great deal of similarities between them and humans in this regard. As far as interacting physically with them, yes, it is possible, and it happened in the history a lot, and it's confirmed in the sound Sunnah.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen the hadith of Abu Hurairah when he captured the thief who was stealing from the Zakatul Fitr charity fund, and he was about to take him to the Prophet ﷺ. Then he gave him an excuse that he was poor and supporting family, and Nabi ﷺ after 3 days informed him that that was the shaitan. He disguised as a human being because they eat like us. And Nabi ﷺ, a shaitan came in order to ruin his prayer with a flame of fire, and he captured him, and he was about to fasten him against one of the poles of the masjid, but he remembered the dua of Prophet Sulaiman, peace be upon him. رَبِّ هَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. When Prophet Sulaiman said, "My Lord, grant me a sovereignty or a kingdom that would not be granted to anyone after me." And amongst the elements of this kingdom, that he controlled the jinn. He had a full control over the jinn, and the Quran talks a lot about that in details. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam set him free. Many incidents like that. Nowadays, for a person, in order to interact with jinn or communicate with them, it is known that they have to be out of the folds of Islam, and to serve the jinn. Most likely those are the sorcerers and the soothsayers. So we do not seek any help from the jinn, nor do we seek to communicate with them. Rather, we only seek refuge with Allah from the jinn and the shayateen. Al-jinn, amongst them, some are mu'min and some are disbelievers. وَأَنَّ مِنَّ الْمُسْلِمُونَ وَمِنَّ الْقَاسِطُونَ فَمَنْ أَسْلَمَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ تَحَرَّوْا رَشَدًا. Surah Al-Jinn.
Okay, Allah is the knower of the unseen. Did Allah know that Satan would disobey Him and refuse to prostrate to Adam? And does He also know the identities of all the inhabitants of heaven and hell?
This is a part of the constituents of His infinite knowledge. Obviously, that He created them, and He knows who will end up in hell and who will end up in the fire of in heaven. Based on what? Based on His infinite knowledge. Some people will dispute and say, and this is basically the core of the problem, which created deviations amongst the Muslim Ummah, where some people said, if this is the case, then we're not blameworthy if He already decided who our fate. So they become Jabriya, and there are others who, in order to get out of this dilemma, they said, no. He gave us the free will, and He does not even know nor create what we do or what we will do. So whatever we do is totally our choice. Allah was unaware of it. This is God forbid, and may Allah pardon all of us.
Ameen.
That is not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His infinite knowledge, knew who are the dwellers of hell and who are the dwellers of heaven even before He created them. But does that mean that He forced us through our fate? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. And He said, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. These verses of Surah Al-Insan and Al-Balad indicate the following: that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us as humans the free will to choose between Iman and Kufr. In His infinite knowledge, He knew that Fuad is going to choose this and somebody else is going to choose that. But it is totally our choice, and we are totally responsible for what we choose.
Okay, what is the purpose of creation of mankind? Why are we being tested? Does Allah need to prove something? If so, who does Allah need to prove and to why?
First of all, the answer is summarized in one verse in the beginning of Surah Al-Mulk. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. That is the first verse. Blessed be the one in whose hand is the domain, and He is على كل شيء قدير. He is able to do all things. So He does not need, nor does He have to prove anything. Rather, as He said in another ayah, لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. In order to know that Allah is able to do all things, which we do, and we acknowledge in everything around us. The following verse of Surah Tabarak al-Mulk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ. Here is the answer, the brief and short answer to this very important question, which is the purpose of life. Why did we come to this life? And what's needed from us to do and prove. So it's not Allah who has to prove anything, it is us who have to prove to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we are worthy of His blessings, of His mercy, and eligible for His paradise. And whoever fails to prove that, then he ends up in hell. And He provided us with the tools of making the right decision. So we totally have a free will in this regard. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He created death and life in order to test you which one of you is best indeed. So life is all about competition in order to reserve a place in heaven and to receive salvation on the Day of Judgment and to run away from the fire of hell. Surah Al-Dhariyat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created neither the jinn nor the ins, but for one reason, which is to worship me. This worship is not an objective by itself, but it is a mean that helps us to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to fulfill what He commanded us to fulfill. And the target or the goal is كل نفس ذائقة الموت فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. By the end of Surah Ali Imran, one of the verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, every soul shall taste death. So whosoever will be removed away from fire and admitted to heaven has indeed succeeded. He is the truly successful one. So this is the ultimate goal. But the ibadah, the obedience, these are means in order to achieve this ultimate goal, which is success.
What are some of the common acts of shirk and bid'ah amongst the Muslims today?
They do vary from a community to another, but what's most common is seeking the help of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially invoking the dead. And I differ with those who, when they deal with this issue, they target the people who died and happen to be buried in certain graves or localities or masajid. And this is a violation, of course, to what the Prophet ﷺ commanded. It's totally prohibited to bury any person in a masjid or to build a masjid on a grave of any person. And Nabi ﷺ cursed those who do that. I'm not concerned about the nature, the identity, and the reality of those who are buried in those piers or graves, even if they were the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. At least they have secured their places in heaven. Let's say and assume they were the most righteous people. Then what's next? What's my role? My role is to study their biography, their history, and to imitate them in their righteousness, not to invoke them, not to ask from them. And unfortunately, this is very common, whether in the Arabic world or in the non-Arabic societies, where people have become so attached to the graveyard, where they invoked dead people. What is their claim? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, the claim of the Meccan pagans before, in the beginning of Surah Al-Zumar, they said, مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want us to take any mediators or mean of approach to Him other than our good deeds. Other than our good deeds. If you want to talk to Him directly without anyone in the middle, especially if this person is dead. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized on the danger of this practice, yet unfortunately it is very, very common. Furthermore, there are some people who believe in lifeless objects. They wear a talisman or ta'weed or a piece of rubber as a bracelet or a necklace that have by the end a box. What's in it? They call it a Quran, a microscopic Quran. You really need an electronic microscope in order to read what's written in it. And that is sold and distributed in front of certain masajid. Why? Lack of knowledge. Lack of necessary knowledge of the Aqidah. I hope that inshallah we can put our hands together and explain to our parents and grandparents, our children. I'm talking about parents and grandparents because these practices are inherited from generations to another. So I hope inshallah Allah will help us to eliminate this from the Muslim society.
Okay, the next question is interesting. Satan cannot do anything outside the bounds of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So are we to take the temptation as tests to our faith? Can you please explain?
Take the temptations of shaitan as test of faith? Absolutely. Everything we're exposed to is a test, whether good or bad, not just the temptations. So if somebody, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed with wealth, and this wealth is halal or possession, that's a mean of test. Allah in the Quran said that we shall test you with good and bad as a mean of trial. So it is indeed a test. So if it is good and we are grateful and we dispose it or we deal with it according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed, we passed. And if it is bad and we abstain from it, if it is in a mean of temptation and we overcome our desire and our lust and we stay away from it, then we pass. Otherwise the person fails.
Okay, the next question is an interesting one as well. When people say that they see their dead relatives calling them, or that they saw their dead relatives just before they died, are they actually seeing jinn?
What is a message that they see in a dream? When I see my grandfather in a dream, why do I have to claim or think that he is a jinn? I see him, I greet him, I know whether he's sitting here or there. By the leave of Allah, that's a dream, right? That's my grandfather or his soul. I have seen him. Does it mean that he's giving me any message or he's communicating with me? Here is the problem when somebody says, I have seen this person and he's giving me a message. What is the contents of this message? If it is something, an advice in order to remain steadfast or to be a righteous person, it's very possible that's my father or my grandfather or whatever. But when the message is out of law, or leads to any violation of the Aqidah, I have no doubt that it's a shaitan. Is it possible? Can the shaitan appear to us in reality or in a dream as the body or the soul or both of a dead person? It is possible. So one has to be careful with that. When you see somebody in your dream and you see one whom you've been thinking about before you go to sleep, you might as well see him. It's called hadithun nafs. You might see him. But only when the message is in violation of the deen, particularly the aqidah, right away say, that was a shaitan and I have to seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from him.
Okay, is recording of deeds only done for actions or for intentions as well?
What was the question again? I'm sorry?
Recording of deeds is only done for actions or for intention as well?
Recording
of deeds.
Yeah, recording our deeds.
Yeah, is it done for the actions we only do or for the intentions we have as well?
Okay, great. Basically, the proofs indicate that what's recorded is our actions. Is only our actions. Even if there is an action which is done as good, but guess what? It was not done sincerely. then who will deal with that on the Day of Judgment is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it appears as good, it will be recorded as a good deed.
SubhanAllah.
What if somebody intends to do a bad thing? As in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, it's a beautiful hadith. I love this hadith so much. إِذَا هَمَّ أَحَدُكُمْ بِالْحَسَنَةِ لِيَعْمَلَهَا or إِذَا هَمَّ الْعَبْدُ. Whenever somebody intends to do a good deed, then he fails to do it. So now he did not do it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will order the angels to record it as a full good deed.
Okay.
What if he did it? Then it will be recorded 10 times more, up to 700, up to unlimited.
SubhanAllah.
What if somebody intended to do a bad deed? إِذَا هَمَّ بِالسَّيِّئَةِ فَلَمْ يَفْعَلْهَا, and he did not get to do it. He changed his mind, or he was reminded, or. So for not fulfilling or executing a bad plan or intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him for that. It will be recorded for him as a full good deed. What if he does it? It will be only recorded if he does it as a single bad deed.
Okay. If someone is in debt, loan, credit card debt, and is finding it difficult to clear it, can he take zakat from his family?
It depends who is the family member, because we say one should not give the zakat to those who are under his sponsorship, financial responsibility. So one cannot pay the zakat to parents or to children or to wife. Especially if this money was used in order to support the zakat payer, directly or indirectly. But we say, generally speaking, one of the 8 categories whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated in verse number 60 of Surah At-Tawbah, who are eligible for the zakah recipients, is wal-gharimin. Al-gharimin does not only mean that those who are in debt. No, because I guess all of us at a certain point that we borrow. But sometimes I borrow against my salary, against certain position, so I have the capacity to pay and pay on time. I may be trouble for some time, but I know I can pay. So not everybody who's in debt that will give him to settle his debt from the zakah, because basically it is the right of the poor. But somebody who is overwhelmed with debt, drowned in loans, there is no way that he can pay it on his own. So in this case, al-gharimin, it is permissible to settle their debts or loans from the zakah, whether family members or outside the family relations.
Okay, please explain to what extent a believer should follow the Prophet ﷺ in contemporary times. Since we are surrounded by so much fitna, I'm not looking for excuses, but to take it easy, but rather to boost my iman.
Naam. You know, whenever we're flying and there are some air pumps, what happens? Right away the captain will announce, take full precaution. If you're using the restroom, return back to your seat, wear the seat belt, and he will alert us to how to use the oxygen mask and all of that. So you just say it, especially at the time of fitan and trouble. Then to what extent should we adhere to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? Take all the prescribed sunnah, precautions. Prevention is better than cure. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is similar to Prophet Noah's ark. If you embark on it, you're saved. If you neglect it, as much as you neglect from the sunnah, you neglect from the deen. We make no distinction between a sunnah or another. There are some people who say, these are not important sunnah. No. Eating with your right hand is a very important sunnah. Praying duha every morning is a very important sunnah. Praying witr before going to sleep and sleeping on the right side and making the dua before going to sleep, these are all very important sunnah. Wherein sometimes if I'm hurrying to give the khutbah of Jum'ah and I want to leave fast, but by the door I remember that there is one sunnah I forgot, which is wearing cologne, wearing atr. So I return in order to practice the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So as much as you can, commit yourself to practice the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. As much as you fulfill and practice, this is how as much as you love the Prophet ﷺ.
Is it permissible to celebrate our birthdays by fasting on that day?
And Nabi ﷺ was asked, about fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. He explained that he fasts on every Monday because this is a day on which he was born. So if you're going to fast regularly, not just once per year on a particular date, in order to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving you the gift of life, for having guiding you, you can do that. But choosing one day and specifying this one day with a certain ibadah, whether it's a fasting or a particular night prayer or reading a certain part of the Quran, that has to be done by the Prophet ﷺ, or you can't. And he did not do that even for his own birthday. Did not do it once a year. Or otherwise, that's another way of imitating, celebrating birthday, but in a different fashion. But it is, once again, specifying a day by certain ibadah. So if you're going to do what the Prophet ﷺ did, and thank him by numerous means, among them fasting every Monday or every Thursday, it's a sunnah. It's a sunnah to do that, and there is no problem.
Okay, the other question is about Mondays and Thursdays as well. Are our deeds raised to the heaven on Thursdays only or on Mondays as well?
The hadith says that our deeds will be presented before Allah on Thursday, and I like my deeds to be presented before Allah while I am fasting.
Okay, what is the ruling on the beard for men? Could you please give us a summary of the different opinions, because it is very confusing for some of us.
It shouldn't be confusing, because alhamdulillah, the second source of tashri'ah is Sunnah, and the most sound collection is Al-Bukhari or Muslim. The Ummah have accepted them both by general consensus, especially Sahih Imam al-Bukhari. Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, and his father narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, and the hadith is collected by al-Bukhari, Khalifun mushrikeen, do otherwise and differ than the mushrikeen and non-Muslims. Ahfu shawarib wa a'fu liha, trim your mustaches and save the beard. For some reason, some people misread it and they read it as shave the beard. It is save, not shave. And there are similar hadith by Imam, collected by Imam Muslim. May Allah have mercy on all of them. Al-Jumhur, Malik wa Shafi'i wa Ahmad wa Imam Abu Hanifa are of the view that saving the beard, growing the beard, is one of the traditions of pure nature, and it's a must. And shaving is a disobedience, and it is totally prohibited. This is Al-Jumhur. Some people kept giving us a lot of headache by saying, no, but Imam al-Shafi'i in his opinion said that it is makruh. I would just assume that he said it is makruh. What does it mean? Makruh means, okay, go ahead and do it. It doesn't mean that, especially with the Sana hadith. In addition to, when we investigate, we find that Al-Imam al-Shafi'i himself, في كتابه الأم, one of his books of fiqh is Al-Umm, the mother. He said that shaving is prohibited and growing the beard for men is a must. This is the view of Imam al-Shafi'i and the view of Al-Jumhur. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for being with us today, Dr. Mohamed Salah. Well, that wraps it up here on Ask Huda. These were the questions of the viewers of the Kalima seminar. And to all the viewers, Jazakallah khair for joining us today. And if you have any other questions, you can write to us at ask, that's ASK, at huda.tv. And don't forget, you can keep supporting us just by writing that email at support@huda.tv. And don't forget to visit our website, www.huda.tv. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If my love is attached to thee, then from sins I will be free. Each time my heart will beat, your name will resound with heat. Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test.